You are listening to Keith Price's Curtain Call.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone.
Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hillsides enough to climb.
There are oceans and rivers
Enough to cross, enough to last
till the end of time. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now.
Yes. This is exactly what the world needs now. A lot of love. And as we start this new week, we are rolling into the new Republican convention, and I gotta tell you, I don't see a lot of love there, Van. This is Keith Price, and I am here for for our wonderful, wonderful podcast that I enjoy doing so much. I love doing this. It's the Curtain Call, and I have another special guest. He's actually a return friend, which is what I like to call him, because, again, he is one of the reasons why there are so many of you that are out there now sitting there popping your fingers to Fiddler on the Roof. You popping your fingers for Color Purple, and losing your mind right now because the latest thing that they just let go. Oh my God, the Unattached. With Alice Ripley and Emily Skinner. We talked to them a couple weeks ago. Fabulous. But, that song that we opened with, What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love, Burt Bacharach's big hit, that Broadway for Orlando has put together, because after it was an initial artistic response to an absolutely tragic event that sadly, as we're sitting here now talking, because I'm here with Van Dean from Broadway Records, who is the guru, shall I say, one of the many gurus in New York City that are just giving us cast recordings and giving us live concert albums. And, unfortunately, this is a song that he had to invest his time and energy in to make happen for such a terrible reason. Otherwise, this would have just been, oh my God, all these Broadway singers singing these great songs. And now we have, since that time, man, we've had even more tragedy happening. And so, again, I feel like this is an opportunity for me to say thank you to Van Dean, because Van Dean, took an idea of a shell of an idea that came to him and made something beautiful. How are you doing, Van? Just
I'm
throw it in there.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God. So Van, it's like, again, last time we talked, we were just knee deep in what's coming from the Tonys, what's going on in the world. We were having a great time. And then within a matter of a couple of months, we've seen some really sad stuff happening. And I don't want to dwell too long on it, but we have to talk about this. And what the song that we opened with, that song, Broadway for Orlando's, and it's really the Broadway stars coming together to try to do something. When you got this idea, when this was brought to you by Seth and James, how quickly did everything happen? Because it seemed like it happened overnight, to be honest.
Even less than that. Basically, as I was headed to the studio to record Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, I got an email from James with the idea, and I thought about it. I, quickly wrote him back and said, "Well, I'll be in the studio all day. If you can stop by later, let's meet about it." And so a few hours later, while we were recording Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, I stepped away for a moment and met with Seth and James, and we talked about how we were going to do this. And 2 days later, we were in the studio. But while I was there for Charlie Brown, we were doing it at Avatar Studios, and I asked the vice president of Avatar if he would donate his facility for us to do the recording, and he immediately said yes, which was extraordinarily generous. And the engineer on Charlie Brown agreed to be at no cost engineer for Broadway for Orlando, and it kind of all snowballed in the best possible way from there. Everybody, even iTunes, is given up their cut. Everybody's been giving up their cut in order to maximize what goes to the people who need it most. And just in the first week, we raised almost $100,000 from the sale of the single. And now it's in almost all the Broadway theaters. They're all carrying it. And it's, of course, on iTunes and our website. And, we're just trying to do as much as we can. And all the proceeds are going to the GLBT Community Center of Central Florida. And they're kind of the point people for the families who were affected. They're all calling them, asking for help, whether it's, funeral costs or getting people from, to be able to fly in, whether it's helping cover rent for, I know there's a story of one survivor whose 2 roommates were killed in the tragedy. And so he doesn't have a way to pay his rent right now while he figures things out. And so there's just all these, as you can imagine, that times all the people who are affected, how much need there is. So we're just trying to do what we can to be a part of that.
Wow.
Part of the solution, to help them.
Oh, man, Van Deen, again, you're doing God's work, man. Like, it's sort of like, I sit and I think about this whole experience of what Broadway for Orlando had become. And I was very thrilled because as someone who loves the people of the theater and the work that they do, it is so wonderful to have seen them gel so quickly, make themselves so available, and at the same time do something so special for you. I mean, once this whole process and this ball started to roll, it's like, how did you manage finishing all of the other projects you had? Because I mean, you're I won't say you're like a one-man show, but you're pretty busy with your hands in everything that happens. And so like you have to come to almost a screeching halt with everything first to be able to focus on this as intently as you needed to?
To a degree. I mean, I do have a full-timer and a part-timer who are helping me out. And most of my focus in the couple weeks following Broadway for Orlando was on that because it kind of took a life of its own. I mean, it's been covered in all the major media. We've had all kinds of opportunities to spread the love. I mean, Sydney just did their own, concert version of it. They did one in Beverly Hills. We're about to go to Florida where we're doing something big there. In Orlando, and so there's a lot of things that have come from it. Also, Stage Door Manor just created the Broadway for Orlando Challenge, where their whole group of kids in the summer program there did a version of the song that they did a video of, and then they challenged other people in the community to do their own, short version of their favorite part of the song. So it's kind of like the Ice Bucket Challenge, where each performer says, "I challenge these 3 people or so," and then they sing their part of it, and then those 3 people then do it and challenge 3 other people, and so it keeps
spreading the word.
Yeah, it keeps spreading, and there's been already some really amazing people who have taken the challenge, and more who are going to. And Stage Door Manor has been donating $10 for every share, up to $5,000 to the GLBT Center.
Wow!
And we hope also that this keeps spreading the message of love, and also encourages people to buy the single, because all the proceeds go 100% of the proceeds goes to the GLBT Community Center.
Wow! And again, Van, you have. This is like the first time that you've done something like this before, because I know that you've done a concert for the kids in Connecticut.
Yes.
And you have consistently seemed to be involved in causes that certainly have a lot of merit that don't seem to get a lot of attention. Like for you now, as we sit here and we're talking about all of this stuff, I mentioned that the Republican convention is starting, the Republican National Convention is starting. And, there's been a lot of conversation about their platforms. There's been a lot of conversations about the people that are performing, or speaking, because that's what they're there for, Scott Baio. And for you, how, do you have kids? I've been meaning to ask you. Okay.
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay. But it's something that you're thinking about at some point for yourself.
Definitely.
How do you feel about the state of the world in terms of just with guns right now? I mean, for me, I would be afraid. I have like a 30-year-old nephew now who I fear for his life, because he is, like me, a target for all kinds of craziness. And it's sort of like, you think about gun control and the conversations that people are having about it. How do you feel? Like, where do you fall into the line of all of this?
Well, I've been working with Sandy Hook ever since their tragedy happened. And, it started with a benefit concert from Broadway of Love, and then started bringing, visiting artists to Sandy Hook Elementary to visit with the kids. And and then helped New Arts create their summer program where we do, 2 full productions with the kids every summer. So I see, very closely everyone who is impacted by this. And I don't see how you can be around them and think about, what they experience without, wanting major changes to happen. And given that as horrific as it wasn't enough to get the laws changed, and now Orlando, the same thing. It's, to me, I think the only way change is going to happen is to change the lawmakers. I think a certain party, to be remained nameless, but I think most people know who I'm talking about, have refused to, listen to common sense. I mean, there's no reason that anybody needs an AR-15. There's no reason that we all need to have access to guns that only the military should have. Now, again, I'm talking about the high capacity weapons, semi-automatic, et cetera. I mean, I'm not, trying to say that people shouldn't have their Second Amendment rights, but certainly the founding fathers never intended for somebody to be able to kill 50 people in the course of a couple of minutes.
Exactly.
That was just never on their radar. And I think that people who are Second Amendment purists think that the country hasn't changed in 200 plus years. And the reality is times change and we have to change with it.
Absolutely.
And so I not to turn this into a political podcast.
Absolutely not.
But I mean, there's no way you can be around, the innocent kids that I work with and not, be really angry that change hasn't happened from what occurred.
From what? And
again, it's pretty simple stuff. I mean, you need better background checks. People on the terrorist watch list shouldn't be able to get guns, without going through a full vetting process, and full background check, and the only reason they should be able to get it is if they're accidentally on the list. But if they're truly supposed to be on the list, then obviously they shouldn't be getting access. And, there's some common sense stuff like that. And again, high capacity semi-automatic weapons. I mean, the guy who invented the AR-15 says that it was never intended for civilian use. And that's the guy who invented it. And the reality is if you need that kind of weapon to protect your family or to hunt, then you're not very good with a gun because, you obviously don't have any kind of aim. So I don't see how anyone other than the gun manufacturers who are trying to, make lots of money can justify why we need weapons of that magnitude. It's just, I mean, where you draw the line? Should everyone be able to have access to atomic weapons? I mean, I think the NRA and most people who say no, well, where do you draw the line?
Well, where do you draw the line?
It's like, why shouldn't, what's the difference between say a grenade and an AR-15? I mean, in terms of the damage it can do. So obviously there's lines that we draw as a society and, we should all be able to agree with that. And 90% of the public does want change, and yet they're being thwarted by the NRA and the gun manufacturers.
Well, it's a lot of money that's being pumped into that for, all kinds of terrible reasons. But again, it is one of those things that I find very interesting because my partner and I have had this conversation a lot. And our biggest concern, too, is that, the other link that people are not making, and that is that there is a lot of very mentally unhealthy people that are on our planet that are either being ignored because nobody wants to deal with it. I know, like, within the Black community, especially in the Black and Latino community, like, we just don't talk about it. You if you're crazy, if that's what they want to label you as crazy, that's how they label you, but nobody wants you to get help or nobody thinks that you should get help. And I think that that's, when you add that to gun accessibility, it becomes a bigger problem that no one seems to care about. But that's neither here nor there, because at this point now, Van Dien is here to talk to me about this big concert that he has planned for the Broadway for Orlando, July 25th in Orlando. Very close. What's the space is very close to the actual site where everything happened at the nightclub. How did you secure that space enough to do that? And because clearly this is a short amount of time that this has happened. I mean, it takes a lot of time and energy to put together any kind of musical events. It's about the logistics of the place, the logistics of the people, the musicians. How are you getting that all done in such a short amount of time? Well, it's a similar amount of time that we had when we did it for Sandy Hook. And one of my producing partners for the Sandy Hook concert is Kenny Howard. And in the time since we produced that, he moved down to Florida and is running a theater down there in Orlando. And so he actually came to me and said,
we had agreed when we created the From Broadway with Love name, when I had come up with that, and then we bought the domain and everything, we said this is something that we should reserve for future use, although we hope we never need it, because we hope there's never another tragedy that warrants such a response. But unfortunately, there have been many, but this is the first one we've been in a position to do something again. But so he said he felt it was time to do another concert of that nature, and so he's actually spearheaded it from down there, and I've been helping him, and we have a team up here and a team down there, and so he's kind of helping lead the team down there, and it's going to be at the Dr. Phillips Center at the Disney Theater, which is a beautiful new theater, around 2,700 seats. It sold out in under 2 hours when we went on sale.
Wow.
And it's a similar size to where we did the first From Broadway with Love concert that we did for Sandy Hook, and similar scale too, and an equally illustrious group of people who are taking part. And this time they're all having to fly to Orlando. Last time we had to get them all to Central Connecticut, but now we're actually flying everyone to Orlando.
Wow.
And we have a lot of corporate sponsors and others who have helped underwrite that, which has been amazing. And because obviously there's a lot of logistics and costs involved.
So now, who are some of the big names? We talked earlier before we turned on the mics, but recent Tony nominee Carmen Cusack is planning on being a part of this.
I love her. She's amazing. And, she was also in the Broadway for Orlando single. Mm-hmm. And we have Cheetah Rivera and Norba Leo Butts and Jesse Mueller and one or two that we haven't named yet that are really amazing. And then there's another almost 24 that we have named that are, if you go to FromBroadwayOfLove.org, you can see the full list. But, a lot of people who are on the Broadway for Orlando single too, like Liz Calloway and Brian Stokes Mitchell and others. And Brian Stokes Mitchell actually is the only one who was in the original From Broadway with Love who's going to be in the new one.
Wow.
And but it's just a host of really generous, talented, beautiful people that are giving of their time to do this. And it's a really stellar lineup.
This is amazing. Van Deen with me here from Broadway Records, and the big Broadway for Orlando concert that's going to be held in Orlando at the
Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts, and we are filming it for DVD, later DVD release, as well as CD.
Perfect, and in time for, it'll be perfect if it could be ready by the time school starts. You know what I mean? Like in a dream world.
That or thereabouts. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. I know, but
it'll be around then, hopefully.
Because, again, this is an opportunity for people that are listening to this who can't make it to the concert or now can't get a ticket because it's already sold out, to be able to take a piece of that home with them as well. And at the same time, for you guys, you can go to BroadwayForLove.org, right?
Broadway with Love.
Broadway with Love.
So it's from BroadwayWithLove.org.
To find out more information about the concert that's coming up and ways that you can actually help by donating. You can donate money to the gay lesbian. Was it the GLBT Center? Yes, GLBT Community Center
of Central
Florida, and give them some help as well. And then the thing is that it's very hard, and I know it's very difficult because in the time of that, since that tragedy, there have been other tragedies in between. And so how hard has it been for you to be able to keep getting people to stay focused on that? Because I think it's weird to say that, but there are lots of other things that are happening since then. How has it been for you to be able to keep that alive? I mean, of course you're working to do that, but I'm just saying, like, how hard has that been on you? Because
well, everyone's been really committed to it. I think certainly the fact that we're taking the Broadway for Orlando team and combining it with some of the From Broadway of Love team members, and then adding a few new partners in Orlando. It's people who are all very committed to the cause and have been a part of it since the beginning, since it happened. And so I think we've all been able to keep our focus. I mean, there are some things that I'm potentially have in the works to react to some of the more recent tragedies, and saying that there's been more recent when that one was only a month ago is pretty tragic in itself. But it would be a full-time job for a team of people to respond to every one.
Yeah.
So we can't do everything, unfortunately, but we're doing whatever we can. And there's certainly a lot of love to go around, and we've seen that, and I know that the Broadway community feels very deeply about it.
That's great. That's great. Van Deen with me here from Broadway Records, go to BroadwayRecords.com too, because, one of the things is we're going to lighten up this conversation because it's like, all right, there's been tragedy and we are trying to deal with it the best that we can as artists. We're responding as well as we can. And that's, truly that's all we can do besides voting, which is everybody's responsibility to figure out how we get rid of some of these people that are making it impossible for us to live somewhat peacefully in this country. Oh, my soapbox. But let's talk about now, Van Deen. Let's just get real now. We're going to talk about the music that Van Deen and Broadway Records is bringing to you guys. Okay, so if you guys have been following the podcast, you know that just recently, just about a week or so ago, Alice Ripley and Emily Skinner just released with Broadway Records their show that they're doing at Feinstein's 54 Below called Unattached. And I have to say that truly, and I have listened to many of the Broadway Records' productions of shows from 54 Below, and I will instantly say that now has been shot right up to the top of my number one list of shows that you guys have been able to collaborate with the artists and have. I mean, again, I'm going to give you just a taste of it, and then you tell me if you don't think this is fabulous.
No, I will never leave. I will never leave you. I will never go away. We were meant to share each moment. Beside you is where I will stay. Evermore and always. We'll be one love, we're two. One love, we're two. For I will never. I will never. I will never leave
Listen to the applause, and that's just for the first number. I mean, come on, man. How hard is it for you to get these guys together to do this? Because sometimes these shows are so they're so hard to commit to. Because I mean, luckily this run with Alice and Emily has been. This is the second time that they've done it, and they've had a long period of time. How long does it take you to get a good capture of a show? Do you generally do like that? Is it one show? You try to record each show that they're doing in a run so that you can have plenty of stuff to choose from, or do you just bank on one show and then hope that it works?
Ideally, we try to get between 2 and 4. It's always a risk to just get one. We've had to do that a couple of times because a couple of artists only had one show. So then, we crossed our fingers and hope that it worked out. And luckily, in those cases, it did. But we like to have at least 2 and, preferably 3 or 4 to be able to have the artist then choose which take of each song from each night that they want. So usually you're not hearing entire show end to end. You're hearing, some songs from night 1, some songs from night 2. But it feels like one cohesive show because, they're doing essentially the same show every night. We're just taking different takes.
Yeah.
But it definitely helps to have some choices. But as I said, there have been a couple albums where we did just do it in one night, though.
Is that a lot easier to produce than, let's say, something in the studio to do?
I wouldn't say easier. I mean, there's pros and cons. From a technical side, because you're in a confined space, 54 Below doesn't have a huge stage.
Right.
It means there's bleed between microphones, and therefore you only have so much control over, each channel and, and how you're mixing it in. So it's definitely an art form to be able to do a live recording like that. So it's, whereas in the studio you have isolation on everything, so you can control each of the individual instruments and individual voices a little better in terms of, levels compared to each other and, the EQ of it and, and other modifications that you need to make in the mix process.
I love that. Van Deen with me here from Broadway Records. And we were talking earlier, I've been trying to get him to tell me what is coming down the pipe because there's so much stuff going on over at Broadway Records. You think this From Broadway with Love concert series that they're going to pretty much going to have to probably do for the next year or so until we get through this election, which is a sad thing. But then if you're a Broadway fan, it kind of is a good thing because that means you're going to get to see these other Broadway artists do other things. But there's a lot of good stuff coming. What kind of good things you got? I know one of the things that I'm looking forward to right now is the cast recording from the Disaster musical. How is that coming along?
It's coming along really well, and it actually connects to our first topic because that album is the reason that from Broadway for Orlando was able to happen, because Seth and James had now knew me from doing Disaster because we'd worked together on it, so that was their first call when they thought of the idea.
Wow.
And so that's how we all came together, is from having done that, and we actually had to take a little break from working on that album in order to do Broadway for Orlando, but now we're back and finishing it. But that comes out September 9th, and we're very excited about that. It's an incredible cast and a lot of fun songs.
A lot of fun songs. And it was a fun show. And one of the songs actually from the cast recording had already been released because Jennifer Simard, who was Tony nominee, we have to say that now because she's a nominee, Tony nominee Jennifer Simard, it was so great, got to release, at least she was the first of the pen to come out of the pen for Disaster, because we wanted to get some attention for her, and I'm so glad that we got that happen. But she just knocks that song out of the park. Oh my God. You got to take a listen to this. You're going to love this. Take a listen. Okay, that last note, shut up. Just shut up. Come on. That, man, sitting in the recording studio with her doing that must have been a lot of fun.
It was. It really was.
She's that girl can sing. That's another singing girl. I love that. And again, Broadway Records has a lot of stuff going on. I mean, that's just one. What else is happening? Tell me more.
Oh, we have 6 albums just in September, possibly 7 if From Broadway of Love ends up coming out then, which we'll know shortly once we figure out what it's going to take to finish it, because it's a pretty big undertaking.
That's a huge undertaking.
But with, so on the 9th, we have Disaster, and then Norbert Leo Butts' new album, Girls, 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 Live at 54 Below. And that one I'm in love with too, because it's really a brilliant concept, that concert that he put together. He wanted to celebrate and talk about all the women in his life, and he does it in the context of the Greek goddesses and Greek mythology. So he takes us through, each of the Greek goddesses and their story and how it relates to the women in his life, and then has, songs that go with each one.
Wow.
And so it's really a pretty clever concept and very well executed on his part, and some really great songs that are a whole lot of fun.
I love it. So Norbert Leo Butts, get back on Broadway, by the way. Now that we're talking about him, love him. He's so good. So for concerts like this and shows like this, and putting them together for a CD, I guess, which is the thing. It's kind of passé now to say CD. I still love them.
Well, me too.
But when you get, someone says that they're planning on doing these particular songs for their particular concerts or whatever, when it comes time for you to actually try to do all of the work that you need to do to get this together, is it harder if about there's the concept of the rights being utilized in order to put these songs, to record them? It's different than them just sitting there doing it in a concert, because some songs will wind up getting taken out because of certain rights issues, or...
Well, it's the way it works in the U.S. is, based on the copyright law, is once a song has been published for a first time, anybody can cover it. You just have to pay what's called a compulsory license. So you go to an organization like Harry Fox, and you look it up, and you're able to get a license for it. So as long as it's been recorded before, and the law is set up that way, because you can imagine like a song like Yesterday by the Beatles, if somebody had to approve every request that came along, it would be a full-time job just for the one song, because there's been a million covers of that. But so it's a compulsory license that agencies like Harry Fox handle. So it's still a factor though, in that one, if it's never been recorded before, then you have to get the rights from the writer directly, as opposed to going to the publisher or Harry Fox. The other thing is we try to stay away from long medleys where we can, because you have to pay for every song individually. So if you have 8 songs as part of a medley, you're paying for 8 songs in that medley. And so
regardless if you're doing the whole thing or not.
Even if it's 20 seconds of the song is you're still paying for the whole thing. Wow. So that's why we don't do a lot of medleys, because it gets very expensive. Artistically, I think they can be a lot of fun and can be really meaningful, but they're just so expensive that they make it kind of prohibitive, unfortunately.
God, I just, again, these are those things that nobody who is in that mix will understand how complicated it is. Because I remember, as I talked to or overheard a conversation with James and Seth about all of the other logistical things that had to happen, like with musicians unions and with the actors unions. And there's a whole other layer of things that has to happen in order for something to just end up on your iPod.
It's pretty involved.
It's pretty involved. And again, people like Van Deen from Broadway Records makes it possible for you and me to sit in our basements if we have them still. I don't know if people still even enjoy their basements because they're now, man caves. with these cast recordings and these great concert CDs that he manages to put his touch on. And I have to say that I'm really thrilled because, again, all of that energy and all of that work is not only being used for himself to do what he does, but he's also found a way to channel that to help people. And so, again, from BroadwayWithLove.org, get your information about what's going on in Orlando. You can actually go to the site and it will direct you right to a direct donation.
BroadwayRecords.com has the direct donation on it. From BroadwayWithLove.org lets you sign up to be notified when the album and the DVD are available for pre-order.
So again, that's one way for you to be able to not only get an opportunity to participate in the actual event, which will be happening on July 25th in Orlando at the
Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts.
Dr. Phillips Center. It's like Dr. Phil's Center. That's what I was about to say, Dr. Phil's Center. And it's like, no, that's not the same one at Disney. And again, they're going to try to help continue spreading the word that love is really the answer. I mean, if you have a respect for life and a love of life, then there's no reason for people to be shooting and killing each other. It really isn't. And so as we close, you can slowly hear we're going to pick up again where we left off earlier at the beginning of this. And don't forget that you can go to BroadwayRecords.com to find out everything else that we were talking about the albums that are going to be coming out in September. You can also, again, there's a direct dial donate to the center in Florida, and as well as sign up for their newsletter, because if you get their newsletters through the site, you'll find out what other things are going to be happening. And I have a feeling that there's some new shows that are going to be coming this season. Have you already started having conversations with people about these new shows for the fall season?
Conversations, yes. Not more than that yet. I mean, we don't have any
nothing assigned
details yet. But
damn, he always does that to me. You always do that to me, Van. You come here and you're teasing me, and then you're just going to go off with the other thing. But that's okay, because Van is doing good work, and I will allow him to do that to me as long as I know that there's going to be great stuff coming down the pipe. So again, go to BroadwayRecords.com to find out more about the concert, find out more about donations, find out more about everything that they have coming out, and support this event however you can. Because, there's a lot of sad stuff that's going on in this world, but right now, this is the only answer that we have to be able to fight this. This and the power to vote. So again, BroadwayRecords.com, Mr. Van Deen, thank you so much for being here. And again, listen, and I want you, when you listen to this, to figure out who all those different voices are, because I know there's some really astute Broadway folks that are out there that you'll be able to tell as soon as you hear them singing. So again, BroadwayRecords.com, because the world's really busy.
Sweet love, it's the only thing that there's just too little of.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
No, not just for some,
but for